Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp.com, and I've been with them for a long time. BetterHelp is an online platform where we found that you can effectively communicate with your therapist. Now, you begin by filling out a questionnaire, and then you'll be matched with a therapist within a couple of days. And if that match isn't ideal for you, you can certainly make an adjustment there. Now, you're going to be encouraged to journal, and also they have the availability for group therapy on a wide array of topics, and I really like that. So as the need exists, go ahead and take the necessary steps to get the help that you need. And just know that BetterHelp has a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, so it indeed is a platform you can trust. There's a link below the video that will take you there. Hey, Team Healthy. Glad to have you for another episode of Unbound. This is where I take questions and comments from you, and we can see if we can pull some themes out of it. I really like it when you send me those comments in because it allows me to address some issues with you all as a group that gives us some hard, real-life illustrations of what we talk about in the rest of the videos that we have out there. Now, I want you to think. Have you ever had a situation where it's very clear that there's a problem inside a relationship and you want to sit down with that person you're engaging with and saying, we can do better. There are some patterns that we have here and they're not helpful, they're not necessary. Let's see if we can go into a different direction. And the narcissistic individual is not necessarily known for reflective thinking. So rather than saying, yeah, let's put our heads together and let's see if we can figure out the whys and wherefores of all of this, they just keep doing the same old things that don't bring good results. And then when it doesn't work, they blame you. I'm going to be giving you a couple of illustrations about how individuals that these people are writing about would rather complain about what they don't like or complain about what they don't have as opposed to doing something in a constructive way. Now, the first one kind of gives us an illustration of somebody who has had one negative extreme, and so they want an opposite, much better extreme, and neither one of the extremes are going to be all that helpful. So let's see if we can get into this. This person says, Dr. C, what's going on when someone who grew up as the scapegoat in their family wants to be treated now as the golden child by their spouse, rather than wanting a healthy or loving relationship? This is an illustration where this person, looking back, my heart goes out to them. If they were on the receiving end of lots of harshness and unfair treatment, the scapegoat, and okay, we've got some turmoil in our family, we're going to just blame you. My heart goes out to them, and that person looks back and says, well, that's the role that I had in my life. Well, that was unfair. But now that same person in the adult years is saying, it's time that we reverse things. I'm going to be the one now who's special as opposed to the one who's ridiculed. I want to be the one who's regaled. I want to be the one who's admired. And that's the role I want to have. In other words, the golden child. And there's one very common theme that links both of those extremes. And that is that individual is saying, I'm still looking out there to you to give me my sense of well-being. Now, when the child was a scapegoat, it's like, well, you folks aren't making my life any good. And so now as an adult, it's like, I want you people out there to treat me better so that I can feel good in here. And either way, that individual's personal well-being is dependent upon external circumstances. Now, one of the things that I would do when I was in the therapy practice with individuals is obviously we'd take an inventory about all the things that may have been happening in that person's history. And sometimes I heard some pretty ugly stories, I'll tell you. But ultimately, the game plan that I would try to put into play with individuals is to say, okay, there are certain things out there in your world that you just simply can't control. You can't do anything about. Other people are going to be what they are, and sometimes they're grossly inappropriate, but there they are. Let's focus instead on your interior. And we would go through all sorts of different patterns that person could become aware of. For example, if they don't like being controlled and dominated by other individuals, what would be the better, healthy alternative for you? For example, picking up on the notion that you're a free person who can choose for yourself. Or if you had people that manage conflict poorly, certainly if you were a scapegoat, conflict was just put all onto you. What would be a clean way of managing that? if you had somebody that treated you in an unworthy person, well, let's ask, well, where does your worth come from? In other words, let's go into your interior and make the adjustments, knowing full well that the world in front of you is not going to give you everything you want. This person that's being described, though, says, no, it's all about those people out there giving me the right ingredients so I can be okay here. I got the wrong ingredients when I was a scapegoat. You better give me the right ingredients and treat me like the golden person. And either way, it's a formula for disaster. And so this is what we're talking about when we say take responsibility for who you are. Do you have a well-conceived definition of who you are? And can you maintain your healthy initiatives when that person in front of you is being inappropriate? And the narcissist, if they were going to be honest, would say, well, actually, griping is a lot easier, and demanding and complaining and moaning and groaning, and they simply don't go into that space of insight. Now, one of the things you may have heard me say before is I just have this notion that says a relatively small percentage of people are the ones who are able to really go into that insight-oriented way of thinking that I just described. And when I say relatively low percent, my percentage is somewhere around 20%. That doesn't mean the other 80% are all narcissists, and that 20% they're wonderful people. But what I mean is abstract thinking and insightful thinking that leads to wisdom and well-conceived ideas is not something that the average Joe or Jane tends to really think about. They just think, well, I wish you'd quit being this way. I wish it would be more that way. And as a result, not nearly enough people will go into that high growth mode. And years ago, I wrote an article saying high awareness comes with a price. If you're the kind of person that says, well, I do want to be an aware person, and I want to have a well-conceived notion about who I am, chances are you're going to be in a fairly small minority. And so here we have a situation where the narcissist, rather than saying, I'm going to go ahead and go to my interior, they keep looking to the outside. Now let's take a look at our second one. This person says, why does the narcissist feel better in a traumatized, quarrelsome family setting than in a happy one? Well, that's a great question. There's never peace with them, only drama and intrigue. How can they seek respect and admiration while also creating a miserable marriage and struggling children? This is pure failure. Okay, so you have a situation where the narcissist in this person's life can look back and say, yeah, I had a lot of trauma when I was growing up. A lot of anger, a lot of shouting, a lot of who knows what, whether she doesn't get specific in this. But here I am now in my adult years, and I did not like the way I was treated when I was a kid. Okay, fair game. I can appreciate that. And what do you want to do about it? And so in this case, the individual in question is described as perpetuating what he or she really didn't like from their own childhood. Well, I got yelled at and cursed at, so I'm going to yell at and curse at you. I got ignored or I got held in contempt, well, I'll do the same thing to you. Why is that? And the bottom line is when crunch time comes, we tend to fall back on what's familiar. All I know is my old man yelled at me, and so that's what I do. I'll yell at you. Or all I know is my mom was, she fretted and she was irritable, and so I'm that way too. And it illustrates that the number one way that people learn is through modeling. And so if that was the model that was there, then that's the model you pick up on. And sometimes it actually has I was going to say a genetic or inherited kind of component, in the sense that about 50%, roughly speaking, of your personality is kind of built in already. And sometimes you just have that gene on the inside because that's what your mother and father gave you in the DNA category. But all that to be said, it's necessary for individuals to say, okay, if I had a family of origin that brought trauma, I don't want to be the next one in line that says, well, I'm going to pass it along to my next generation. I hate it there. I'm going to gripe about it all day long, but I'm not going to do anything healthy about it. I'm just going to keep the thing going one generation to the next to the next. I hope that you can be the person that says, well, the buck stops here. In my history, I've done a lot of anger workshops, and I conduct a lot, and I let folks know up front. In the Carter family, we had a lot of strongly opinionated men, and my own father talked about how he was so afraid. Everybody was afraid of his grandfather on his father's side that nobody wanted to be around him. He was so mean. My father's father had harshness, and he was very forceful. My own dad was very opinionated. He tried to take it in a different direction. Sometimes he succeeded, sometimes he didn't. And then here I am. I'm the next one in line. And it's like, well, I know how to be angry. I can do that. But is there a better way? And healthy individuals will say, well, I want to see what the family trajectory is like, and I want to examine, what things that I received that I didn't really care for. And rather than saying, well, I'm just going to gripe about it, or I'm going to say, you owe me more, or I'm just going to complain. My thinking is, well, someone in this equation, self, needs to be different. And how hard is it to take that mindset? And the answer is it can be pretty hard, because when you keep going back to some of the same old people who operate with you in the same old way, they expect the same old results. And when you come along and say, I used to be in that negative or harsh or argumentative mindset, but I've walked away from that. I've got other priorities in mind. I define myself quite differently, and it's what I refer to as you develop your own wisdom. You develop your own separate and distinct emotional competence, and that's where I'm going to go. And in order to get there, you kind of have to build in a certain amount of pessimism. And what I mean by that is you just need to remind yourself, there's some people who just won't join me there. They're going to be committed to their own negativity. They're going to be the gripers and the complainers, the ones that say things need to be different, but they don't really take personal responsibility. I'm not going to go into that space. I'm not going to join them. So realize that the narcissist tends to be stuck in a pattern of complaint. They're stuck in a pattern of, you owe me, what are you going to do for me next? To the extent that they don't grow. Here on Team Healthy, we want to anchor down on characteristics like dignity, respect, and civility. And then we want to ask the penetrating question, what does that mean on many, many different levels? So I hope that this gives you some good awareness of what you might be dealing with and where you might go in a different direction. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, I would encourage you to do so. We're going to keep more of these kind of discussions and videos coming your direction. Please know also that I'm a huge proponent of psychotherapy. If you have a need for somebody to help you break this down, we have a sponsor, the folks at BetterHelp.com. They're all licensed professional therapists. And as you go through the link that we have provided below, and then you can select a therapist, I'm hoping you would be able to find somebody that could connect well with you so that you can talk this thing through and be that kind of person that says, I want to be the one that breaks the chain. I want to go in a much healthier direction. So seek the therapy as it would be necessary. Also, I'd invite you to go to my website. I've got plenty of resources on there. Primary among those resources are my courses. I have 4 different courses. Each one has at least 25 teaching videos with handouts and guided questions, anger games about how not to get caught in the unhealthy patterns of anger. This is me about establishing your boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite the controllers. We also have Ready, Set, Connect about healthy connections. So good courses that it take you a lot of time, but you can do it on your own pace. Along with that, I have my webinars, articles, my books. We have lots of resources there. Now, you're going to notice that when you're around the narcissists, they can complain. They say, oh, yeah, I had a lot of inappropriate things happen to me when I was a kid. And then when you say, okay, what are you doing about it? Oh, I still want all you people out there to make me feel better. And they haven't just picked up that sense of personal responsibility, saying, well, I'm going to be one that thinks this thing through. There's someone in here in this equation needs to be anchored in wisdom. I want to be that person. Narcissists can't do that. I hope it defines who you are.